I want to freeze up while we're doing it. Hold up. There you go. My bad. There you go.
Okay. It's a their field clerks scoured written records. Scroll down. Okay. Took oral testimony. Remember, we do everything orally anyway.
Yeah.
And generated enrollment cards for individuals determined to have Indian blood. Now, remember, they didn't have blood tests back then.
Yeah.
How the fuck they know who got Indian blood?
Right. Right.
You gotta keep that in mind because they make it sound like they could just run a blood test like they can now, pull your DNA and say, oh, you Chickasaw, you Choctaw, you Cherokee, you Ojibwe, right? They couldn't do that back then. So look what they're doing. They took oral testimony and scoured written record.
Yeah.
Right? All right, now, that's good. That included authentic Indians. How they know they're authentic?
They're right. Yeah.
They declaring them authentic under the Dawes Roll.
Mm-hmm.
But it also included lots of people with questionable heritage.
Mm-hmm.
And you see it, and they already know this shit that I'm telling y'all. So this is not a secret. Commissioners took advantage of their positions and enrolled people who had very minimal or questionable connections to the tribes. They were not adverse to taking money under the table. What you say?
What you say?
You say? They can't be doing that. Look at this eight. Index to final rolls of citizens and freed men of the 5 civilized tribes in Indian territory, prepared by the commission and commissioner. Biggie Smalls, the commission. American Indian removal policy and the Trail of Tears. Now we're getting good. Andrew Jackson policy led to a shameful episode in U.S. history. And this is who we talking about.
The nigga on a $20 bill. That's why I don't like 20s, man. That's why I don't like 20s right there. I don't like 20s.
Well, I spend the shit out the motherfuckers. I don't plan on putting nothing up in no frame, no way. Right. All right, now look. The American Indian removal policy of President Andrew Jackson was prompted by the desire of so-called white settlers in the South to expand into lands belonging to the 5 indigenous tribes. After Jackson succeeded in pushing the Indian Removal Act through Congress in 1830, the U.S. government spent nearly 30 years forcing indigenous people to move westward beyond the Mississippi River. This is the Trail of Tears.
Exactly. That's what we're talking about.
But that's gonna come back up because that's part of the biblical contract.
Mm-hmm.
In the most notorious example of this policy, more than 15,000 members of the Cherokee tribes were forced to walk from their homes in southern states to a designated territory in present-day Oklahoma in 1838. Now, this is before the Dawes Roll.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Damn.
Many died along the way. The forced relocation became known as the Trail of Tears because of the great hardship faced by Cherokees. In brutal conditions, nearly 4,000 Cherokee died on the Trail of Tears. Mm-hmm. Go back up and look how long this took place. Look how long this was going on. Go back up.
Go back up right here.
Right there. They spent nearly 30 years forcing indigenous people to move westward beyond the Mississippi.
Man.
Right? Now, where do this happen? Somewhere in the Bible. Don't this happen somewhere in the Bible? Somebody was traveling around for 30, 40 years because they ain't had no homeland.
The Israelites.
Where was they coming from?
They were coming from ancient Kemet.
Mm-hmm. Who was they following?
Who they following? Moses.
Okay, and Elijah Muhammad said Moses did what?
Go ahead. I can't remember.
Elijah Muhammad said Moses was the one that was sent to civilize the so-called pale man.
Yeah, okay, yeah, to put the boat. Yeah, go ahead. Okay, I'm with you.
Remember, he said Moses had to sleep in the ring of fire because they were so savage they might eat him in his sleep.
Right. Go ahead. That's right.
Right? Yeah. Now, in here is 30 years. The biblical stories say 40 years.
Okay.
So it was a 40-year sojourn
Okay.
Right? So this 30 years take us to 1860, 40 years take us to 1870, about 12 years before the Dawes Roll Act.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So from 1830 to the Dawes Roll, okay, go over to Google and pull Dawes Roll up again. We got to get the exact year again.
I got you. Boom. We hitting it. We in the zone right now. YouTube, hit that like button if you're in the building, man. We got 558 people in this joint, man. Everybody hit that like button for us, man.
Are you seeing any questions coming about what we talking about in the comments?
Yeah, we got a couple questions. We're gonna take questions in about another 5 minutes because we're gonna get off at 10:30. Then we'll come back tomorrow if we have to on this subject because this is
tomorrow. I got Brother Rich.
Okay. Oh yeah,
Black Magic 363.
At what time you doing that one?
I think 9:30.
Okay, all right. Man. This shit's sticky. Man, bro.
What you pulling up? I can't see that.
I'm pulling up the Dawes Roll, but like my shit was sticking. Don't let me type in. There you go, right here. It's the year is 1898. Hold on, let me go back. Just find out. Okay. The Dawes Roll, also known as the Final Roll, are listed individuals who accepted eligible tribe membership in the 5 indigenous tribes: Cherokee, Creek, Choctaw, Chickasaw, and Seminole. It does not include those whose application was stricken, rejected, or judged to be doubtful. Probably some dark-skinned people, right? Real Indians tried to file and they got shot down, right? Those found eligible for the Final Roll were entitled to we just had read that, right? Allotments of land, usually as a homestead.
Mm-hmm.
The roll contain more than 101,000 names from 1898 to 1914, primarily from 18.
Okay, we just looking for the year right now, Elder. The year that it was passed again. So you go back to the main page. The year shouldn't be hard to find. It should be right there.
Right here. Okay, I got it. Hold up. I got you. It's the year is 1893.
Okay, so from 1830 to 1893, that's further than 40 years of sojourn waiting to have a reservation.
Yeah.
Right, actually it's 63 years, ain't it?
Yeah. It says from 1893 all the way up into it's a long time. Hold up.
I thought it was first passed in the 1880s.
Hold up, let me make sure this right here is right. It says right here 1893. So hold up. What year? Okay. 1887 is the date.
Okay. Now that's more closer to the date I was thinking.
All right. The 1880.
So that's 47 years still though. That's the 40-year sojourn of the so-called Israelites.
Yeah.
Now now remember, while this is going on, let's go back to my Google page, my Facebook.
Okay.
So while this is going on, the Indian Removal Act, right? They marching across the land, but they're supposed to be coming from the South.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody that know basic American history know that the South was about 90% melanated us.
Mm-hmm.
So where did these pale people come from in the South?
Exactly.
They couldn't have been there. So we're going to go to where they come from in the next one. We just reviewing Dawes Roll now, right? So scroll down. Let's read some more. There have been conflicts between whites and indigenous people since the first so-called white settlers arrived in North America, but in the early 1800s, the issue had come down to the so-called white settlers encroaching on the indigenous lands in the southern United States. Now, here go the problem.
Mm-hmm.
Go back to Martin Luther King, talking about the mechanizing of the farms. Right? Now, he's telling you what was going on during this period right here. This is the period of time he's talking about when they begin to mechanize the farms, and they hired us to teach the so-called settlers how to farm the land.
Mm-hmm.
All of the indigenous people know that we had to teach the people that came to the land how to farm, because none of them knew how to work the unique land that was over here better than we did.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Now, 5 indigenous tribes were located on land. Notice they specify on land that would be highly sought for settlement.
Mm-hmm.
Especially as was prime land for the cultivation of cotton. The tribes on the land were the Cherokee, Choctaw, Chickasaw, Creek, and Seminole.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Over time, the tribes in the South tended to adopt the so-called white ways, such as taking up farming in the tradition of white settlers, which we taught them how to farm. This is a known historical fact that all of us know without even asking who taught the so-called pale people how to farm. Remember the Mayflower came, they was dying of starvation because they didn't know how to cultivate food.
That's right.
Right. So in some cases, even buying and owning enslaved Black people. They got to throw that in there, right?
They had to put that out for now.
I like that right there. I see what the problem is here. I'm talking English and you listening and dumbass. I might look calm, but I just slapped you in my head 3 times.
That's how 15.
Okay, in fact, settlers hungry for land were actually dismayed to see these tribes, contrary to all the grotesque propaganda about them being savages, adopted the farming practices of white Americans.
Yeah,
this don't even make sense. This is not even possible.
Yeah, right.
Right? But this is the story, the narrative they're giving us. So we're gonna work with it. The accelerated desire to relocate indigenous people to the West was a consequence of the election of Andrew Jackson in 1828. Jackson had a long, complicated history with indigenous tribes, having grown up in frontier settlements where stories of attacks by them were common. Right? Now, before we go any further, we need to hear Chief Warhorse.
Let's go.
So can you open up another page to open up that second enslavement and identity among the Cherokee? That's what you call a bas relief sculpture. Now you notice, if you look, one of the dudes all the way to the left, he got nappy hair, and the rest of them got straight hair. Yeah. Oh, and the one, you leave that motherfucker alone, you know what he's doing? Get out the mix. You cause him. But as long as they are bringing attention to the cause and they ain't really hurting nobody, let them say nay all they want to. They're going to find out in the end I'm right. And I did everything according to the law of the land to reclaim the land from the de facto government. They don't know what to do. So I have to do it because there's nobody else that knows what to do. But when they mentioned me fighting for Larry, I've been telling them the whole time I'm a GD. They say I never met Larry. How many GDs do you know that have? He been locked up most of our lives. They got GDs right now that's 8 years old. Bang hard for that shit.
And he's been locked up since he was 17?
I don't know, he's been locked up 50-something years.
That's still a long time. That's still a long time.
Yeah, it is. But that don't take away the loyalty for the chief. That's my chief. Period. So I'm going to fight for my chief because it's right. Right? And if they don't like it, that's their business. You know what I'm saying? But as long as, I don't mind. People got an absolute right to disagree with me. This is what they don't get. This is why my feathers don't get ruffled. If I expect everybody everywhere I go to agree with me, I'll be a goddamn fool. Right? And I don't have to agree with everybody either. The only thing we really need to be agreeing on right now is we organic to the land. We got an invader here that's occupying the land as if we not here. And the only remedy we have is somebody with the blood ties to the land and the right to overthrow the system to speak up and put it in the public domain. Right? I don't got to do nothing else. I already did the work. I'm just telling everybody the work been done, right? I'm telling them the legal goodbye letter from the corporation is the Indigenous Rights Act. It's the same as them write the little note saying, it's been our pleasure oppressing y'all for the last 400 and something years. But due to what this nigga over here doing, we can't stay. Love to oppress y'all more, but we have to go now. That's the same thing. That's the summary of what the Indigenous Rights Act is. Right? So once all of these things come in, like they wasn't talking about the Indigenous Rights Act in the Moorish community a year ago.
How long has it been out? Because I literally just came across it this year when you mentioned it.
Yeah, the first one came out, I think it was like 2014 United Nations.
Yeah, that's a while ago.
Yeah, come on. And the other one was 2017 for the United States.
That's still a while ago. And people just now hearing about it.
No, it's certain people that's heard about it, but when I start explaining to them what it is, more people start to investigate it. They didn't know what it was.
I refilled that big little thing down there.
Okay, good looking at you.
My pops tied in the food from the turkey jungle.
There's no more cans. This was the last can.
Okay.
My fault, y'all. I ain't mean to hide the comments. Some comments I gotta click show. I changed the settings later. My fault, guy. Go ahead.
Yeah. So we can go to the next question now.
Second question was, where's she at? From Sister Solaris. So what can we do in our communities to get the ball rolling?
Get as many of the elder women together as you can, and y'all become your city council. The mayor position is a matriarch position. That's why it's called mayor. Mayor is a female horse. And the March of the Mayors always lead the culmination of a meeting of the grants with the grand matriarch. Right? Now they don't do it that way. In their system, the mayor doesn't have the stroke that they used to have. Your mayor, all of the mayors in a territory, they call them states now. So all the mayors in the state used to go to the capital to meet with the grand matriarch of that territory or state. They call it a governor, right? The governor is the meaning of the Ottoman term bey, right? So the governor normally had a governor and lieutenant governor, which was a matriarch and a chief. The matriarch was the governor, the chief was the lieutenant governor who presented everything to the public. Right? Now, when all of the grand matriarchs from every territory come together, right, they form a different council. We call it a Senate or Congress. Right? That's the de facto corporation's version of it. Right? But we used to call it the meeting of the matriarchs or the matriarchal council, the council of the grand matriarch, depending from which part of the land we came from.
So another question tying into community is, so what should we as the daughters of tribes be doing? Does that just go back to the whole becoming city council?
Right, it goes back to the same thing. So in every city that we got a large population, we got churches. The Baptist church, the Protestant churches that's incorporated with our culture are what we call Holy Ghost churches, where they shout. And they all have a group of women called prayer warriors and church mothers, right? Each church pick a church mother and gather all of the churches. If you have a large Islamic presence, each one of them pick a Ummah or Ummi, Ummi Islam or Ummi Dar Islam. That means the mothers of Islam, right? And they will form a council, and then the leader of them will connect with the leader of the church mothers, this don't no longer have anything to do with religion. We destroying religion by instituting spirituality, just like they destroyed spirituality by instituting religion. Right? So then we teach the sisters Sufism, because that's the ancient power source. It tells them how to turn the mitochondrial on and how to turn it up to full capacity, and it changes the frequency of the whole planet. So they was allowed to take it from us, but they got men practicing it. The men can artificially raise their mitochondrial frequency, but it won't last when they leave unless it's with a woman. So when you see the Sufis doing their ceremonies, they are actually doing what you call mitochondrial activating ceremonies.